Could you be living on the edge with pre-diabetes? LifeScript's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Ed Geer, explains the warning signs and how to take action. I'm Ron Caporelli, and this is House Calls. More than 79 million Americans are at risk for diabetes, and many of them don't know it. That's because something called pre-diabetes develops silently, affecting the function of your liver, pancreas, and circulatory system. But you can take steps to stop diabetes from developing. LifeScript's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Ed Geer, joins us today to explain how. Ed, good morning.
Good morning.
So, what exactly is prediabetes?
Prediabetes is where the blood sugar level is elevated but not high enough to qualify as having type 2 diabetes.
Now, what are the symptoms? Could I have it and not be aware of it?
Yeah, they can be fairly subtle. The classic symptoms of diabetes are thirst and excessive urination, some fatigue, maybe some blurry vision. But that may be all you experience.
And what makes somebody more at risk for that?
Well, there's a number of categories that put people at high risk. The most common one is obesity and levels of inactivity. Beyond that, though, age greater than 45 puts you at risk. Women who have had gestational diabetes, that is, diabetes that occurred while they were pregnant and then went away, it then could come back as prediabetes. And there are certain ethnic groups like African Americans, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Hispanics.
And what's the best test to determine if you have this sort of precondition?
Well, you get a blood sugar test. Let the doctor measure the amount of sugar in your blood.
Anything else I should get besides a regular blood sugar test?
Well, the other ones, if there's an elevation on the regular what we call a blood glucose test, is you can get what's called a glycated A1C test.
Well, that's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful, but that actually measures the amount of accumulated or stored glucose inside of red blood cells.
Now, once I determine that I have prediabetes, what other ongoing testing do I need to do to make sure that I'm not developing the full-blown disease?
Well, there are two other tests that can be done. One is a true, what they call a fasting blood glucose test. And that's typically one you'd get at your doctor's office on an annual exam where you don't eat the night before or the morning of, and they check your blood sugar that day. And then the other one is what's called an oral glucose tolerance test, where you drink a very highly sweetened liquid and then after fasting, and then you go ahead and get the blood sugar test done again 2 hours later.
Okay, now if I have prediabetes and it goes untreated, or if I never become aware of it, does it always end up resulting in type 2 diabetes?
It doesn't always, but more likely than not, you're going to be at very high risk of developing type 2 diabetes if you just ignore it.
Now, can this be reversed either through diet or exercise or drugs or so forth? Can it be completely reversed?
Yes, it can. That's the good news, is that pre-diabetics can really eliminate their risk by about 60 to 70%.
Wow.
By losing weight, eating a normal diet, and getting exercise.
So what type of diet is best for somebody with that condition?
Well, anything with complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables.
By complex carbohydrates, you mean?
I mean, other than the simple white starches that we're all used to eating with white bread and that sort of thing, the more complex carbohydrates and fruit, nuts, proteins without much fat.
Got it. So weight does influence this whole
Absolutely.
process.
The more weight you gain, the higher risk you are.
Does it matter how the weight is distributed? You know, we've read things, certain body types and shapes.
Well, you've heard the apple versus pear shape.
Exactly.
It turns out that the apple shape is 5 or 6 times more likely to develop diabetes than the pear shape.
Okay, so what body processes are really being affected in this condition? What's really going on in the body?
What's really happening is that you've got this chronic elevation of sugars in your blood, and that affects your arteries, your nerves, all of your organs become impacted by that, and it's an unhealthy state for the body.
Now, what about women? Any increase in the risk after menopause or after pregnancy?
Yes, certainly after menopause there's an increased risk. And for women who are pregnant, who get gestational diabetes, that is temporary diabetes while they're pregnant, and then it goes away, they're more likely to have diabetes return. Also, if they have overweight babies, 9 pounds or greater, they're at risk of developing diabetes.
And the moral of the story, of course, is to be attuned to those subtle changes in your health because even those subtle changes could indicate the beginnings of a very serious disease.
That's correct. Particularly if you're overweight, you've got to really be paying attention to this silent danger.
And if you have prediabetes or you suspect you have prediabetes, above all else, consult your physician before doing anything else.
Do consult, because you can absolutely help prevent the onset of diabetes.
All right. Dr. Ed Geard, thanks again.
You're welcome.
For more information on diabetes, visit our Diabetes Health Center at www.lifescript.com. In the next episode of Living with Diabetes, we find ways to lower your blood sugar naturally. From Los Angeles, I'm Ron Caparelli.